Welcome back, designers, to another video. Today we're going to be learning how to create this gradient poster which I made recently.
Oh my god! Wow!
I hope you guys are enjoying the tutorials and giving it a thumbs up. If you are, let me know in the comment sections below, that's what it's for. Let's get straight into the video. So the first thing you're going to need to do is get your background image, which is going to be a plain A4 background. The size is that's the size in centimeters. It's really not that big if you think of it in terms of pixels.
No! God, please, no! No! No!
There's the pixel size, so you just need to copy that. The next thing you're going to need to do is get your images. So I'm going to leave these in the description below. They are fairly big, but they look good and they have a good quality. So I want this image, and then I've got my space image as well. If I zoom out, you'll be able to see it better. These two images we're going to use to make this gradient poster tool. And first, you're going to need to start cutting this image out. So I'm going to do this now. I'm going to speed it up for you guys so it doesn't take too long. You should all know how to do this by now with the pen tool. Let's get straight into it. Right, so we have our selection, guys. I've done a very rough cut. It doesn't need to be perfect for this image because, as you'll see further down the line, we're going to paste out the edges of the gradient, the mountains, with a gradient and a motion blur. So let's get straight into it. Let's cut this out. I've selected the image with my path and I've layer masked it out. There you go. We've got our image.
Nice.
Next thing you're going to need to do is get your move tool and sort of just make sure it's in position, and then apply the layer mask. Once you have applied the layer mask, you're going to need to cut these two images out, like from each other, because obviously one is really dark, one is really light. We don't want to make one really dark and one really light, basically, because we're going to use levels to make the gradient look the same. So if I just go down here with my quick selection tool, select my image and just basically minus that from the background, and then what I can do is right click and go layer via cut. So now that's cut away from the background. As you can see, I can just minus it out like that. Yeah, pretty simple. I'm just gonna rub away the edges with the rubber tool, just as they don't really need to be there, and it's just going to cause an effect on the background like so. There you go, perfect. Now what I'm going to do is go to my layer and I'm going to choose to add a levels layer, and I'm going to clip it to this layer like that. Now I'm just going to darken the image a bit, just going to bring the darks out, so pretty much like that. And what I'm going to do as well is I'm going to make it a black and white image. So if you go up here to image adjustment and go to black and white, which is here, as you can see it looks a lot cleaner. And I'm going to turn this one on because now it's got a little bit of blue, and I'm going to do the same with this one. You don't have to do this if you don't want to, but I think it makes the colors mix better and it just basically brings the design together a bit more. Now what I'm going to do is I've got my levels on that one. I'm going to add in the background, which is the blue universe. So I'm going to unlock that and I'm going to drag it over to our project. Once we are over here, I'm just going to probably shrink it down a bit like so. And then I'm going to make sure that I can get this main bit of the atmosphere in the background. So that's that done. I'm going to put this at the bottom. Now you can see the mountains coming through. Now you can see it all coming together. It's really not that hard to do. It's quite simple, and this is really good for your practice as well. You could easily use this in a design, in a poster artwork, for a band, anything you want to use it for. I'm going to desaturate this as well. So if I go image, desaturate, then it's going to go black and white as well, but it's keeping that contrast of the whites against the black. The next thing we're going to need to do is probably, I would say, add some levels layers. to this one, just to clip it to that. If I do that like that, and then I just need to make it a little bit darker, maybe increase the white a little bit, but I'm just gonna take off that edge. Now this is where we add our white overlay. So if I go back to our main image, as you can see, there's like a white gradient over the edges of the design. I'm gonna add this in now. So first thing you need to do is select your image and then create a new layer. So it's going to be clipped to this one. Then you're going to get your brush tool and you're going to go down to soft brush, fairly big, and get your hardness to 0. You're going to choose your white paint, and then you're just going to start painting around the edge. Just go around the edge and hold it down like I'm doing. And you don't have to do this all over, but it's good to add it in certain areas. Do small clicks, because obviously if you want to erase it, you don't want to erase the whole thing you've done. And once this is all done, we're going to basically reduce the opacity, and then we're going to give it a Gaussian blur. As you can see, I've done quite a rough like overlay of it. I'm just going to reduce, actually I'm going to do the Gaussian blur first just to see what it looks like. So if I go blur, Gaussian blur, you want this quite high. Just so it has quite a blended effect, like so. About 129 I'm going to do, and then I'm going to reduce the opacity just a little bit, so it's about 90 to 95%. As you can see, this has just added like a subtle thing. If I turn that off, it just adds a bit of contrast to the image. Now I'm going to do the same for this next layer, and I'm just going to paint over the edges like so. Not going to make it too sharp, but you want it just so you can see it well. Obviously they're both different because they're darker on different images, but if you still can use this, it's still going to look good. As you can see, I've added the same Gaussian blur to this one, but it doesn't look as similar. It's a bit thicker than the other one. It's because the image is a lot different and they have different contrasts. So if I go to the Gaussian blur again, maybe I'll do it twice. This time it might look a lot better, or I just make it less, because if you make it less, it might just stick to the edge a bit more, like so. We've done our images, we've done our background. We just need to I'm going to duplicate the background layer, Command J, and I'm going to group all of these together like so, and I'm going to name it BG for background. Now the next thing you're going to want to do is create your gradients. This is going to be done by using a circle and some color. So I'm going to draw a circle out like so, like about that big. Doesn't matter what color it is, because eventually it's just going to be used as a clipping mask. I'm going to make it black for this sake, and I'm going to put it above the background layer. Now you've got your circle. Now we need to create a new layer above the circle, and we're going to get our paintbrush tool again, and we're going to click and just create some sort of gradient. I'm going to do a green one this time, I think. Just going to make my brush size quite big. Now I'm just going to start painting like so. As you can see, it's not clipped to the circle yet, so you can still see it around the edges. But once we clip it to the circle, we'll probably have quite a nice blend of a gradient, so I shouldn't need to clip it yet. You just want to add in all the colors you want. Probably make sure they're like similar colors, otherwise it'll look a bit silly. But once you've got your colors, you literally just go to the layer and then you just go create clipping mask, and then as you can see, it's added into the gradient, and you can move it around, get the colors you want in there, and then that's all that needs to be done for the circle really. And then you can group those and name it circle. Now once you've got this, you're going to want to add it into the background layer, and then you open up your background layer and see where the circle's gone, because you want this behind the main mountain like so. So I've dragged it below the mountain, and I'm just going to Command T just so I can move it around like that, and I'm going to leave it, probably make it a bit smaller, but I'm going to leave it about there. Then I'm going to duplicate this layer, Command J, and I'm going to Command T again. I'm just going to drag it probably down here a bit, and I'm just going to move it above that layer so it overlays on top of that one. I'm going to increase the size a bit. By doing this, I've created a manipulation in shape and a manipulation in depth of field. So obviously you can see it's behind this mountain here, but it's in front of this rock here. So by doing this, I have basically created a depth of field and an understanding of scale. This is something that's really helpful in Photoshop because it can help you manipulate so many different images, he says. I will show you more tutorials on how to do that. Now, you've got your circles. Next thing to do is increase the background. So if you get your duplicated layer, you're going to want to pull it above like so. Now, all the images are gone, but this is where we use blending modes. So if you go down from normal and go all the way down to soft light or hard light, either one works. I prefer to use probably soft light and then reduce the opacity like so. It just basically gives a bit more background and a bit more texture on these gradients. So as you can see, they've got little dots in them now, and you can see I'm going to add some brightness and contrast just to bring the brightness back to the image. Probably might put this below this image, maybe, or just above, I'm not too sure yet, or reduce the contrast just so it's not so dark on the edges here. If you can see, by adding this background layer, we've been able to add in some texture which is very needed, so it brings it all together. There's so many techniques of bringing the image together which you need to do, otherwise it just won't stand out and it just won't look right. The next thing I'm going to do, which is the final bit, we're going to add the type. So to do this, I'm going to put it in the center, but to do this, you're going to need to use guidelines. So if you go to View, New Guide, and then you're going to want to put 50% on each one of these. So horizontal and vertically. So horizontal is going to be 50% and vertical is going to be 50%. Let me just do this again. These are super helpful. You guys really should get into using these. They're really useful when applying text to an image and you don't know the center. Sometimes Photoshop's pretty good at snapping, like snapping to the place you want it to. It's not great. So using these gradient tools, these guide tools, you can basically manipulate an image a lot better. So as you can see now, I've got my type. I've put it in the middle of the image. It's centered and it's using the guidelines to do it. I'm just going to click my character tool and I'm just going to reduce the kerning between the text just so it's a little bit more together. You want it a bit spaced out, but you want it to look like a compact image, and if you space the elements out too much, then it just won't look right. To get rid of the guides, you're going to want to use clear guides, which is right there. As you can see, it's gone. I'm just going to add in the poster bit below. This bit doesn't need to be centered up because you've already centered up the main text, so you can just sort of align it to that. Doesn't really matter how big you want it. See, as you can see, it just snapped to it. These are little tricks that you'll learn along the way, and it'll help you increase your depth of knowledge. So I'm just going to increase the kerning a bit on the poster, and then I'm going to move it again so it's centered. As you can see, we've made a gradient poster. This was quite simple. There's obviously a lot more techniques you can use to do this. This was quite a simple way of just showing you how to manipulate an image, and I hope you enjoyed it. It's been really fun making it. I'm trying to improve the videos each time, and if you could leave me some feedback in the comments, I would love that. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you next time.